In this section, I'm going to start the discussion about entrepreneurial marketing with answering the question, why does it seem to be so difficult for so many entrepreneurs? Because we've definitely found that marketing and money are the two biggest issues that pretty much every entrepreneur struggles with. It might be helpful to define what we're talking about when we use the word marketing. Well, here's one definition. So it's all about communications, about the value, and the end goal is to sell your product or service. Marketing is called a bunch of different things. Some people do call it customer development, some people call it customer acquisition, but it's all about the communications with potential customers and trying at the end of this communications process to get them to buy. As a startup that's trying to create a new marketing strategy, it's important to keep in mind the big goal, which is a sales and marketing model that is first of all predictable, not to say that every time you do something a good sale is going to happen, but rather if you do it 100 times, you know about 20 times it's going to work. Therefore, it's repeatable, so you can start to be scalable. That is to say, you can go attract some money and say, hey, I know how to do this, give me more money, and I'll be able to do this 1,000 times more. And the key to be able to do all of that is to make sure that the sales and marketing model is cost effective, that it doesn't cost so much to get your new customers that it chews away all of your profits. Developing a cost-effective, scalable, repeatable sales marketing model is absolutely critical for your success. A big killer of startups is, in fact, a too high cost of customer acquisition. Here are the 6 big reasons why startup marketing is so hard. The outcome of a marketing campaign is not predictable in advance, so it's like an experiment, and the outcome depends on lots and lots of different factors. Marketing is a big industry with lots of vendors trying to sell you something, whether or not it's a fit. Even if you know what you're doing in general with marketing, sometimes the outcomes are exactly the opposite of what you expected. Because of the internet and social media, the choices in marketing are changing very rapidly. Our world is full of marketing messages from a large variety of sources that are all competing for our customers' attention. As a startup, we are constrained by the money and time we have available to look at all of these different options. Marketing is an arena in business that has long benefited from the application of scientific experiments. The results are not necessarily predictable in advance, and it's good to have the discipline of the scientific method to really try multiple different things in a controlled experiment to see what actually the outcome is going to be. However, that kind of discipline that you might expect is in sharp contrast to the emphasis in the marketing industry, especially the world of Mad Men and advertising, where the emphasis is placed on creativity as opposed to the scientific method. And even if you're trying to figure out in a reasonably scientific way what the heck is going on, there are, in fact, a large number of variables that can impact the outcome. Here's just a few of them. Why don't you check off which ones you've been thinking about, or maybe the ones that you should be thinking about? And on top of all of that, for those of you who know science, you have to really have a large data set, that is a whole bunch of different test subjects in an experiment to get reliable outcomes. You as entrepreneurs, well, you don't have the luxury of doing a test on thousands or hundreds of thousands of people like a Procter & Gamble does. You have to make guesses based on relatively little data. Another reason that marketing is so challenging is that there are an enormous number of choices that are being sold to you, including traditional things like newspapers and television, catalog options, but also new things like online auctions like eBay, or places to list your product on the web like Amazon, Google AdWords in a bunch of flavors, and then there's social media, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, Facebook, LinkedIn, just an overwhelming assortment of choices. And the problem is almost all of these are priced on the effort they're going to try to get you customers as opposed to the results actually getting you customers. And then there's the challenge of sometimes counterintuitive results in marketing. Sometimes you can work hard on your pitch, but if people don't like you, you're actually not effective. You can have a great logo, but if you have the wrong set of colors, that could be a problem. And speaking of problems, maybe you're trying to reach particular customers, but you haven't identified the right problem that's actually going to connect with them. And then there are other segments where you think you're going to lower prices and increase sales when in fact the right strategy is to increase prices, and that actually drives more sales. Think like high-end wine. And in our limited resources entrepreneurial world, we're challenged to get really good statistical rigor, which you can only achieve with very large number of samples. And so we have this instinct to try to get simple results from a rather complicated situation. And we may end up thinking that two things are correlated, but actually A is not causing B. They're just happening to be going along together. And finally, we're talking about human beings here that we're trying to market to. We can listen to them all we want and we can hear what they say, but what they actually do is sometimes different from what they're saying. As if all that wasn't challenging enough, we're living in a time where the marketing world is rapidly changing. We're seeing the collapse of newspapers and magazines for that matter. We're seeing a dramatic change in the video landscape. We're seeing the rise and proliferation of social media, but rapid changes as to how you can effectively use them. We're seeing a world where the desktop has evolved to the laptop, to the mobile and the tablet, and lots of changes going on there. We've seen an explosion of apps, some of which are great for advertising, many of which are not, as well as in our society, a whole bunch of cultural shifts going on. Very tough to figure out what's the right marketing strategy. But just because marketers might be confused doesn't mean they're not advertising. In fact, we're living in a world where there are, by some measures, 3,000 ad attempts every day per person. That's extremely intense competition for your customers' attention from all sorts of people who are not your direct competitors. In such a confusing and challenging environment, it's very tempting for entrepreneurs to take what's sometimes called the spaghetti strategy. Just grab a couple things, throw it against the wall, and see what sticks. So, as an alternative to the spaghetti toss, we'd like to offer 3 options to help maximize the impact of your marketing in this challenging environment. First of all, we want you to work on effective messaging. Second, we want you to understand the funnel process that Steve Blank talks about, the get, keep, grow model for marketing. And finally, we want to encourage you to learn fast, learn cheap with a couple of performance-based pricing digital marketing alternatives such as Google AdWords or Facebook. And now it's time to take action. First, I want you to list all of the types of marketing outlets and activities you have used or have thought of using. And secondly, circle 2 that your ideal customer might run into when they are thinking about the problem or the desire or the need that you are trying to solve and deliver.